How we doing, folks? Right, as promised, a couple of people were quite interested to hear my thoughts on a particular species of tobacco which I'm smoking at this current time, and I figured it may as well be a good enough time to do a potted review of it. Leo's potted thoughts on Bill Bailey's Balkan blend. Try saying that with a mouthful of Brazil nuts. Well, I picked up a tin of this fairly recently, about a month or so back, beginning of December maybe. Cheers. Because it being the chillier months, I've decided to experiment with a few of the more sort of Latakia and Oriental based blends that I wouldn't usually smoke, certainly not during the summer months. One of the things that always strikes me whenever I am smoking a Balkan blend, or something that's rich in Latakia, I get a lot of older people pass me in the street and they'll say things like, "Oh, that smells like the tobacco my dad used to smoke." So evidently, the Balkan blends have a very long history, and the scent of them very much provokes a Madeline moment in some of the members of the older community. But anyway, as you can tell by the attire that I'm wearing, it's bleeding brass monkeys, mate. It's freezing. We've got snow coming down here in Somerset. I'll see if... Let's just spin the camera around so you can see. It's dark, so you're not going to see much, but I look out over from my barn end over a sort of hill and down to the farmhouse, and you can't see because it's dark, but I'm watching the snow just in the light coming down. It's not yet settled, but it is chilly. It is very chilly, and it's a very fitting time indeed to be smoking a Balkan blend. And because I'm a man of contradictions, I'm pairing it with a nice Rioja. But, yeah, so I was on a particular German website perusing for what tobacco to try. And this one caught my eye. And it caught my eye specifically because, unlike other Balkans, it is labelled as containing both Kentucky and Perique, which I thought was a really interesting addition to a Balkan blend, which would usually ordinarily, of course, be a Virginia, a Turkish Izmir, a Latakia, that sort of thing. So the addition of Kentucky and Perique to me really struck me as quite interesting. And I was a little bit sceptical about it, but not being a huge Balkan fan, as I say, ordinarily. And I did a little bit of research beforehand as well. And there's not a huge amount of videos out there in YouTube land, in the YTPC, that are singing the praises of this particular blend. So I was a little bit, added to my skepticism. But I have to say, every time I've smoked this blend, I've been really, really impressed with it. It's a flavour bomb. There's so many different things going on in the palate, and I find it a really, really satisfying smoke. And it's funny because you know when you're not particularly keen on something, it's not that you don't like it, it's that it doesn't really float your boat. So you're kind of indifferent, you're despondent, you're not really that bothered either one way or another. Well, that's kind of generally how I am with Balkan blends. So I kind of, every time I've packed a bowl of this, I've kind of approached it with that same mentality. I'll pack it because I've got it, and it's, I'll give it another go. And every single time, I'm really impressed by it. It's great stuff. And I think some of the reviews on that you'll see on YouTube are somewhat harsh. It's made by DTM Tobacco, Dan Tobacco, and we know that Dan Tobacco makes some damn fine tobacco. So really, in terms of quality, absolutely can't complain. You're not going to be able to see this. Let's see what's the light doing in here. One of these days I might get a bit more pro and get one of those O lights or something that people use. Well, you can't see. But basically what is burning in my bowl, or what's sitting on the top of my bowl here, is a layer of really fine white ash. Burns beautifully. And when you're not talking bollocks, it stays alight consistently. So flavour wise, I get obviously it's a Balkan, so there's that sourness you get from the Turkish, the Orientals. There's the smokiness that you get from the Latakia, but there's also this spiciness, and there's this earthy, woody. I just got a flavour there, and I've raved about it for a while because, and I mentioned my Wistman's Wood video in the last video I did, I think. But in that Wistman's Wood video, I was smoking a tobacco which I believe is no longer made, which was White Dog. And I think it was an HU tobacco blend, if I remember correctly. But it was a cedar flavoured tobacco. This has something of that cedar flavour, that cedar note to it. And if you're a cigar smoker like I am, every time you open your good quality humidor and you get that waft of the Spanish cedar, or even an old cigar box, an empty cigar box, and I've got a few of them sort of on the shelf behind me there somewhere, and every time I open them to get nuts and bolts and things out, my nuts and bolts smell lovely. Misses. So yeah, there is that kind of cedar smell to it as well, that cedar flavour, which I find really appealing. It's a bog standard ribbon cut. I'll actually stick this into a jar after. I've got gloves on, and it's, oh, there we go, finally get it open. And I've got a touch of arthritis in my middle finger. So I've obviously been exercising that finger more than any other. Bog standard ribbon cut. Now when I bought this, it was perfect humidity really. It's feeling a little bit drier now, so it really does need to go into a jar, I think, since I opened it. But very sort of bog standard ribbon cut. Nothing surprising to look at there at all. But I think yeah, you get an aroma of hay, and from the Virginias, of course, you've got that smokiness, that spiciness of the Orientals, but also you can smell that perique, that slightly cheesy perique smell. And it's nice, and yeah, I mean, it does remind me somewhat of cedar wood. And being a forestry person, I do rather like things that smell of wood. Yeah, it comes in a 100 gram tin. And I highly recommend it. Now, if someone's able to tell me who the Bill Bailey is that this refers to, I'd be happy to know, because to those of you folks in the US and elsewhere in the world that watch me, there is a very well-known comedian here in this country, in the UK, called Bill Bailey, and actually you would often see him, certainly earlier on, a decade or so, you'd see him with a pipe, and he'd use it as a prop a lot of the time for pointing and clenching or whatever else. and was, maybe still is, I don't know, apparently an occasional pipe smoker. But I'm fairly sure it's not named after him, so if somebody wants to enlighten me as to who the Bill Bailey that it's referring to would be, I'd be very grateful to know. But, yeah, that's it, really. I have to say I'm really enjoying smoking this stuff. Now I have a little tobacco pouch. Can't remember who it's from, who made it, but it's got two compartments. So in one of them I put a Virginia, and at the moment in the other half I'm keeping this stuff, so that if I fancy a straight Virginia, which I'm always all about straight Virginia, I've got some, and I've also got something a bit more interesting. But smoking it in my workaday pipe, my Peterson 306, 307, can't remember which one this is. Oh, 302, sorry, 302. Which is the pipe that generally rattles around in my rucksack and gets treated like crap. So, yeah. That's it, my potted opinion of Bill Bailey's Balkan blend. Highly recommended. That's it for the minute, folks. I will catch up with you again soon, but for the moment, from my shed, I'll bid you a good evening. Stay warm.